Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Haemo-Goblin League podcast. I'm joined by Matt
Hello.
and Tom.
Hello.
Who we should make a good point at the start. Tom and Thomas are two separate people. They are both playing Lizardmen in this, and I haven't seen them in the same room together, but we are informed they are different people.
Yeah, one of them's just a robot version of the other.
I'm not even sure at this point, to be honest.
But we're here today to talk about the 10 teams in our league. It's really 9. How they've done. We're going to preview playoffs and in particular the last round, a couple of rounds really, and take some guesses as to who we think is gonna win.
Euan.
But we've actually got essentially in fact, the current standings. We do have the top 3 players at the moment, which is a happy coincidence. But yes, we'll get to that later. We'll start at the bottom, and the first one, nice and quick. Ross dropped out just before the halfway point, just after actually his best result, which was a draw with David, which was a very impressive result, especially as David was smashing just about everyone at the time.
Yeah, David was at the top at that point, and before that, Ross did very well against me. He actually scored against me.
Yeah, so Ross, new player to the league, by far and away the least experienced, was just clearly sort of learning the game and got to the point where he was getting competitive and then had to drop out, which is a shame, but maybe he'll be around for season 4. So next, technically there's 2 people tied at 8th, but I'm going to say Kate is 9th because she's played 2 more games, and she is the only other player that mathematically cannot make the playoffs at this point. Probably worth pointing out that our playoffs, if you're 1st or 2nd, you go straight to the semi-final. If you're 3rd through 6th, you play in essentially a quarter-final. If you win, you go through to the semi-final. Just to encourage better league positions, giving you more of an advantage in the playoffs. But Kate, much improved on last season, despite 9th, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I was actually tipping her at the start of the season to go quite high. Just because every other game I've played Kate in, she's been just really silent but deadly. Not completely silent, obviously, but she just kind of keeps her own thing, and then suddenly she wins. So yeah, I guess this is kind of slight revenge in this game.
I'm just looking at the scores that you had against her, Tom. So you've got 1-1 in your first game that you had, and then you beat her 1-0 in the last one you played. I remember at the beginning you had I think the consensus was that she'd either be in 6th position or in last. I think it was Andy that said that. And I kind of feel like, because obviously I see a lot of Kate's games, I sort of feel like when I'm sitting there, I'm watching my favourite Premier League team play or something, and then they're not doing well at the end. And I'm like, no, it's heartbreaking. I'm like, come on, you guys.
I think Kate, I think, has been very impressive for like 90% of the game she plays, and then does a big mistake and can't come back from it. And that mistake really has killed her both times she's played me. And it's normally something silly like doing a 1 extra punch, getting it both down when it's not needed, and then suddenly there's a big hole in the lines and player runs through to score, and that's it.
Yeah, I've noticed that a little bit.
She started off very strong. I mean, the first game that I played was against Kate, and we were 2-2, and that's when it was raining. And it was obviously quite a high-scoring game.
Yeah, and then she gets back next week as well.
The other thing that I've noticed is you start the game playing Kate, and then about halfway through the second half, you start playing Matt as well.
That's not true.
It is true.
I'm there cheering up. I don't give any tips. I'm not telling her what to do. For some context to this, Yes, because I'm like, oh, it's like when you're watching a match of football and you're like, oh, come on, I could do better than that. Like, you're like, come on, then, go out there and try. For context, though, generally speaking, we talked about games before they happened, and then I'd be like, all right, this is how you're going to beat that team, okay? You've got to do this, do that, whatever the team was. Like, make sure you mark those guys or whatever, because your guys can take the hits. Yeah, I don't know.
Too much tactics. I think that's the problem. Not enough passion.
Maybe.
Yeah. Kate sadly can't make the playoffs. It's mathematically impossible, but had a pretty good showing with the undead team. So next, there's a potential. Well, there's 18 league games played by the end of this. We are on round 17 at the moment. But next up is Andy, who's only played 14 games, is on 13 points at the moment with his Bretonian team. He's still in the running for playoffs. I think arguably the biggest obstacle in his way is playing enough games to get the points. But there is also a bit of a gap between him and Lachlan and James. So he does have to A, play the games, and B, win quite a few of them to keep himself in contention.
When he has to play 3 games to catch up, right? So
Yes.
there's, what are we today? Saturday. So you've got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's 4 days. So it's a game a day. Last week I did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because I was behind.
Not impossible by any means, but sometimes life can just be busy at inopportune times.
Yeah, I think he's locked down at the moment as well. I think he tested positive, but hasn't got any symptoms.
But we've all played Andy's team twice, I believe. I've had 2 1-all draws where I felt it's been really tough to break the team down. I've been playing Underworlds, and Andy's Bretonian team has quite a few skills, and they've been really problematic for me. I'm not sure how you found playing against them.
Yeah, I'd say kind of. He's got a lot of annoying players. The amount of wrestle and fend, I found particularly annoying, especially as a a bashy team. But I like the way he plays. I like the fact that he likes to just try to randomly just make one of his players a hero and do some crazy things. Yeah, I think it was fun to play against.
Yeah, Andy,
it's a very interesting team, isn't it?
Yeah, Andy has this slight. There are some times where I look at someone and I think they've played that a bit too safe, and Andy, I think, doesn't have that problem. If anything, he probably goes a bit too far the other way. But in season 1 he got to the final. Season 2 he sadly didn't really compete. Season 3 he's in this position where it's going to be tough for him to qualify for the last 6, but it's still possible, and I think it's still in his hands if he wins everything. Albeit that's easier said than done.
He'll get 9 points, won't he, if he wins the next 3?
So he'll be on 21.
Which is more than James has currently
22.
got.
So, yeah, so he'd be on 21 if
he'd be in 6th position.
Next 2 places he could be on 24. But they play each other, so obviously both of those can't happen. Both of them can't win that game. But yeah, there's the top 5 positions I think are essentially sewn up. In what order is still up for grabs, but 6th is going to be a real fight. And as the 2 people here know, it can literally go to the bottom turn of the last game.
Yeah,
don't remind me about that.
That was basically a competition between me and you, wasn't it, Tom? To get into, I mean, we weren't playing each other, but to get into the playoffs in the last season.
Yeah,
I think I've got a bit of a grudge against Matt, mostly because of that reason.
Rivals.
I think I'm a rival with you, but you just haven't noticed. You're too busy just being that slight bit ahead of me every time.
You're ahead of me now.
Well, I
this-
didn't want to
this-
bring that up.
Tom's ahead in the league standings, but the head-to-head is firmly in Matt's favour.
Oh,
And
don't even start on that.
I was going to say, what's quite interesting is we've got the team with the best defence here, which is Tom's Lizardmen. We've got the
Yeah.
team with the best attack here, which is Matt's Elves, and then I've got the second best attack and defence. Albeit I'm sharing second best defence with a couple of teams, but they've also played less, so and I'm not going to go lower than that, obviously.
Yeah.
But half of the touchdowns Thomas conceded have been in his 2 games versus Matt.
I was gonna bring up that point. Again, hence the hence the grudge.
Wait, half of them? Oh,
Yeah,
so I've
but-
scored 5 against you, and yeah, okay, you're on 10.
Everyone else
Okay.
has scored 5 at the other 12. The other 14 games.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
yeah, you really do have quite good defense. How many have I let
Not
in?
against you though.
I've let in 17.
Yes, you're almost if Lachlan and David in their games have a couple of against them, you could be tied. You could easily be second or third by the end.
Is there a brick wall award? I mean, Tom's definitely going to get that, right?
It could all go wrong. Last few games.
There is not an end of season award. The reason we don't there's always been the temptation to have like a reward for doing well, but my personal thing is if you've done well the season before, you're a better player, and we shouldn't reward the better players. We should reward the players who are struggling, which is why we've got a catch-up rule, which we haven't actually taken advantage of this season because no one's been far enough behind to merit it, which is kind of encouraging in itself.
That's good.
But yeah, it's like it feels like if someone's won the league and therefore we shouldn't give them a head start next season.
I think that makes sense.
But yes, yeah. Currently, Tom has to have a horrendous last 2 games to be in any sort of danger of losing the theoretical award for that. And likewise, someone has to score an awful lot of touchdowns to get even close to Matt's total of touchdowns. But
Who's the next closest? You are, I think, 26.
yes, so it's more likely someone like David or Lachlan. Well, actually not Lachlan. He's a bit further behind. Someone with more games played has a higher chance of overtake you because I'm not sure if you've seen Underworld, but they're not likely to score 7 tries to overtake you in a game. In fact, you've seen them twice each. But yeah, Andy, he's got a chance of getting through. He's in one of the tougher positions to get through, and his teams are just a pain to play against, which is cool because I'd never played against Bretonians until this season.
Me neither. I mean, being an elf team, I haven't noticed. He wasn't. I mean, having said, as I say this, he did get obviously 2-2 against me in our last game that we played. But I think it's sort of easier to slip past him because his team isn't really. I don't know if he's got anyone with tackle or anything like that.
He's got quite a punchy team. He's got a lot of guard. He's got some strength. He's got a lot of combat skills like fend and wrestle.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have anything to stop.
Fend is the one. Yeah, Fend is the one that is a little bit because sometimes it's good for me to be able to follow up. Otherwise, I think there aren't any skills that particularly inhibit my team. Say block is probably one of the hardest things for me to overcome. Yeah, I haven't found them as difficult, I suppose, as you two might have because of your teams.
It's weird. In both games, I've felt in reasonable amounts of control at times, and never come close to winning. There's never, in fact, in both times he's had a theoretical, if I roll a bunch of 6s, I'll score and win the game here, which hasn't turned off, which hasn't come off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been. He's a good player and he's played it well, and it'll be interesting to see if he can get in the top 6 because if he does, he'll be a real threat going forwards.
Well, it's good that he's gone for them as a team as well because I think there are obviously teams that are good, like really obviously good, and then there are teams that are sort of more tricky to play. And obviously, Euan, having said this, I know you've gone for a trickier team to play, but you've gone against that anyway somehow. But I think next season I'll probably end up doing something similar and going for perhaps a crazier team.
Well, Bretonians are kind of generally speaking, there's 3 tiers. So there's top teams, middle teams, bottom teams. Top teams are tier 1. Bretonians are kind of a solid middle, lower tier 2 team. They don't have a lot of disadvantages, but they don't have a lot of strengths compared to a lot of the top teams. So they're kind of a middle of the road team, and he's middle of the pack with the chance to go up. So performance
Definitely,
potential.
yeah, definitely held back by the whole team of strength 3 though. I think, you know, if they had maybe a couple of strength 4s, they'd be a much better team.
Well, in the new edition of Blood Bowl, the physical game, Bretonians don't exist, and they've essentially been replaced by the Imperial Nobility, who are a lot of very similar players. So they've got linemen with fend and wrestle and things like that. In fact, I think they've got one type with fend, one type with wrestle. They've got blitzers with extra skills like catch, like the Bretonians do, but they also have an ogre, which obviously adds a bit of muscle to the team. So Bretonians getting a buff in Blood Bowl 3. Hurrah. Well, they're getting deleted and someone very similar to them's getting a buff. But next in line, I think the team that no one wants to play and has caused the most fear, death, and pain throughout the league is Lackland's Goblins. So 15 games played, 18 points, very much in that contention for 6th spot. Currently, 6th spot is held by James, who's 17 games and 20 points. So 2 points behind, 2 games in hand. Has a massive game against Andy, because if Lackland wins that, Andy is essentially out of the running for 6th. Because Lackland will just have a lot of points head start over him. If Lackland loses that, then it's such a mess between him and James and Andy to get that 6th spot. But how have you two found playing against Lackland?
I mean, the first game, somehow he ended up with, I don't know, I think it was like 2 or 3 players left on the pitch. I got insanely lucky on it, and everything I hit just got injured. I'm not expecting that again. I think it's going to be horrible. And
oh yeah, you've got him next.
yeah, and you know, it's not a team you want near going into the playoffs. So I'm hoping that he doesn't kill anything. That's you know, I don't mind if I win or lose, as long as he doesn't kill anything expensive. I'll be happy.
Yeah, there was for my games, the first game I played of the league was against Lackland, and I finished the game with. There were 2 or 3 times where I thought if the game ends here, I won't have 3 players to start off. If someone scores a try here, I won't have 3 players to line up on the line of scrimmage with a real possibility. I think there was one turn I had to entirely skip because I had no players standing, or even knocked down. They were all stunned or worse, and that game somehow ended in a 1-1 draw. And the second time I played him, his team imploded spectacularly, and it ended up as a very comfortable 2-1 win, which probably should have been 3-0, but I'm not going to complain, given how his team played in the first half.
I think all credit to Lackland for the team, because I think it's a very creative approach to playing. Like, I like the delete my players, keep at the level of, you know, original starting value, benefit from the cheaper star players, and just add as many of those as you can, and then chuck on the bribes. It's very effective, and yes, scary to play. I think considering my history in the game and how many deaths I seem to experience, I've been very lucky against Lackland. I don't think he's actually caused any deaths in any of our games that we've played. There have definitely been injuries caused by him, and I remember very early on Spruce Willis was chainsawed repeatedly and somehow survived. He was down on the ground for, I think, probably 6 turns at the beginning, just literally lying there being chainsawed for ages until eventually it backfired. But yeah, I don't know if I haven't particularly feared his team per se because they're strength 2, and so for me that's like a real boon, being able to just run around, suddenly whack someone out the way, and then suddenly get past. And then obviously the guys with the balls and chains, whatever they're called, fanatics, is it?
Yes.
It's more a case of running away from them, and then you're sort of okay. And that chainsaw guy, try and hit him before he hits you, I think is the trick.
Easier said than done.
True, yeah. I mean, if he's got him in a position, or if there's something more important to do, like hit the guy holding the ball, the guy with the chainsaw is pretty much always going to be the one that's doing the blitz.
Yeah. Just for comparison,
Hmm.
Lachlan's team, or Lachlan's current 11 or current lineup, has got a total of 84 star player points. Matt's team has 251, and that is with 6 dead players. And unless something spectacular happens, Matt, you're going to win the award for the 3rd season in a row of most dead players in a season.
I just don't understand it.
I think it's just my luck. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I'm leaving players open to attack. But then, if you look at the games I have played, or the teams I have played before this, obviously I had Batman in the first one,
Skaven.
and the Skaven,
They're a fragile team, especially if it's a
obviously
very matchy league. Then
yes, and I had no knowledge of the game at that point, so I was definitely leaving players in places I shouldn't have been, and base contact and all that. And I could have been obviously being a bit more defensive. And then the second time was with my skinks. I think I was pretty brave with the skinks. I think that was the league where I think I probably got quite unlucky with the Sauruses. They just seemed to keep dying on me. I think 3 Sauruses die, or 2. I think was it 2? I think it was 2 Sauruses.
I think 2.
One of them. One of them had leveled up and I think had block or something useful, which is just really annoying because it's so hard to sort of level them. And I've played it extra safe this season because I knew this team obviously is weak. They're squishy. I bought the apothecary really. Had it in the first game. I've really I used it for a couple. I've saved a couple of players. I've deliberately let other players die because there are other players I don't want to lose as well. So linemen have just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, no, sorry, you're going to die now, because if later in the game Bruce Willis or Benedict Lumberthatch, if they get taken down and killed, then that's such a big loss for my team. There was one game early on I lost a capture. No, that was it. I think it was Ross's game. The game I played against Ross. That was actually a really bad game for me. I mean, I did win it, obviously, so it was worth the loss. But I lost a catcher very early on. I can't remember who it was. It was Matthew Mahogany. He'd leveled up, and he basically I lost him, and he died because I'd used my apothecary to save someone else earlier in the game. Of course, Ross had quite a bashy team. Lately, I haven't really even used my apothecary in games. I've had probably about 5 or 6 games in a row where I haven't needed to use it. Or at least I've chosen not to use it in lieu of potentially losing someone else, and then it's just never happened.
I've got to say though, it's been 3 months, or I don't know how long it's been since this league started, but Lumberthatch just doesn't stop getting funny.
I don't know if you saw, Tom, you suggested a name for a player, and I've included him in the team. It's Sean Beanstalk.
Have you? Oh, cool. Has he died yet? Surely he has to die by the end of it.
He's a bit of a star player, actually. My last 2 games I played, he scored 2 touchdowns and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I think 3. Yeah, he scored 3 touchdowns in the 2 games he's been in. So he's doing quite well.
Doing the classic Sean Bean of being a hero and then dying. He's got to die in the final or something.
Yeah, he'll definitely die eventually.
So I think the think it was April the 7th. I've got as my first game against Lackland, but I might be. Oh no, it was before then actually. Sometime in March. When we started this. God, it's been going a while.
That's like 5 months.
But yeah, Lackland's team he's got the highest body count. Without question, it's not even close. He's had a reasonable amount of casualties himself, but
I bet.
yeah. And if he ends up as 6th, he's probably playing Matt. There's still a few things to go there, but that'll be an interesting and terrifying quarterfinal to watch.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered that. I don't really want to play him because he might cause some
No one
injuries.
wants to play Lackland. It's the fear that comes up when you see a line that's got 3 trolls, 2 fanatics, and a chainsaw guy at the back, and you're like, no, I want nothing to do with this.
But I always relish the moment though where the referee blows his whistle and then all of his players get sent off. Assuming he
I
hasn't
might
managed to
just
bribe
leave.
people.
I might just put all my players at the side and just.
Well, we spoke on a
Just-
previous version of this podcast on a different channel that if you were playing Lackland in round 18 and you'd already qualified, which David will have done, do you tactically forfeit?
Well,
I
exactly.
think that's against the spirit of the game.
I don't know. I was considering deliberately losing to James so that he goes through ahead of Lackland, and then I get to play him again, and then I'll just win.
But I remember in
He said
my
confidently.
round 9 game against Thomas, my best player got injured and had missed next game, and I was delighted because it meant that Lackland couldn't kill my best player next week, even though I was like, my best player down. Oh wait, that means he can't get killed.
And it
Yeah.
worked out because you won it.
I did. That was due to Lackland imploding, and rather than anything to do with me, really. But that was quite funny. But last person that's competing for the 6th and bottom league position is James with his high elf team. I've won both my games against James. It's interesting to see how he's played compared to last season, where he was much more bashy team. High elves just throwing particularly well have been tough to play, but I think I've won mine reasonably comfortably. How have you two found him?
So my game against James, I'd just come off and this is going to happen again. So I haven't played him twice yet, but I play Thomas, and that's usually he's Lizard team, so I take a couple of injuries. I play Lackland. No, I play Euan. And if you remember when we played, you destroyed my team to the point where I also, like you mentioned earlier, had a turn where you just had to press skip. I had that as well. And then after that game, I had, I think, maybe 3 players who were like, miss next game. I didn't have my tree man. I had half my players basically, and then I went up against James. And his team value is quite high. So I managed to sort of buy in another tree man. And I don't know if it was necessarily worth it in hindsight, but we ended up having a tie. We're just kind of, because we're quite balanced, sort of trading goals, if you know what I mean, touchdowns, I should probably say. Now that my team right now, I feel is at kind of full power, as it were. So I think next game, I'd like to think that I'll do better. But we'll see. I mean, he's got the armor advantage.
It was a good game because that was the one where I didn't play Andy, and then I basically just watched your game instead.
Right.
And yeah, it was a great game. It was so close, and you were just sitting there going, "Oh, it's just no one, barely anyone's hitting each other." So for me, who's been bashy for the last 2 series, it was just completely confusing. And yeah, I kind of did what you did. Like I couldn't, because I was rooting for James. I felt like I kept giving advice, and I was like, "Why am I doing that? I can't." I don't know.
It's tough when you want to be like, why are you doing that? You get an extra block or an extra dice if you do it that way, but it's tough sometimes not to be like, it's tough not to say anything.
I think you're very good at seeing those sorts of things as well. I think you have a sort of 6th sense for it. I think some others might miss things, like I'm sure I must miss stuff. I don't know if you've ever watched a game where I've played and you've been like, oh, you should do something differently. I'm always interested in that kind of insight because, and I think when we play, I'm always like, oh, what do you think I should have done there? Was that the right thing to do? I just kind of want to know what your thoughts are.
One of my
You're so
favourite things about
consistently
playing,
successful.
one of my favourite things about playing against James, and Tom does this to a lesser extent as well, but he very much commentates on what he's doing. It's like, oh, why did I do it? Why did I put him there? I'm an idiot. I need to go and move. I should have done there instead. It's like, yeah, probably.
I mean,
James,
every time.
James is very much like that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think every time James plays, if he has a game, he'll pretty much usually message me afterwards and be like, "Oh no, I just lost my game" or whatever. I can't believe it. And it sounds like he's really unlucky in almost every game he plays. Like something will happen, he'll be like, "I can't believe it."
Yeah, I feel like James is. Hiles are probably the hardest and weakest stealth team to play. And I think he's done very well with him, considering he's also relatively new to Blood Bowl. And I'm intrigued to see who he picks next season and how he does with them. Because I'd be delighted for him if he got 6th. I think he really deserves it because he'll be his first time in the playoffs. And it's going to be, as we mentioned a couple of times, it's going to be really close to see who gets that last spot.
I feel a bit guilty almost because I remember he was. I think because I'd made my team well in advance of this league. I was very prepared. I was like definitely having Wood Elves after I think I did like a trial run with them in a game, and I really liked the Tree Man, which is the main reason. And I think he was also thinking of picking them, but then changed to High Elves because they had Wood Elves. So it could have been that we had 2 Wood Elf teams.
They do play quite similar. High Elves are a little more forgiving in terms of injuries, but Wood Elves have start with better skills. High Elves are a little bit more punchy, but not by a. They've got less strength 2 players, which is always a nice thing not to have, if you'll excuse the double negative.
Yeah, I'll excuse it. Sure.
Fair enough. Thank you. So next up in 5th, with 16 games played and 28 points, so a bit of a jump from 6th. Still possible for David to make the top 2 and get go straight to semi-final. Looking rather unlikely, given that he would need to overtake Tom, who's 6 points ahead. So would need to score. No, A, Tom would need to lose both games. B, David would need to win both games, and B, David would also need to score. Well, if you won both games and Tom lost both games, by definition, you'd have a higher touchdown difference, given how the current standings are.
Yeah.
Or we could have the same touchdown difference, and then we have to go on to what the next steps are, which I think we said was remove game round 1 from the standings, but I can't remember if we said head to head. I'll have to check what we agreed on last season. But yeah, David was the early front runner, did exceptionally well in the first half of the season. I actually thought his game where he drew against Ross was somewhat of a turning point, because I think his record since then hasn't been quite as good.
I remember you. I think you originally predicted that me and David would be top 2, and I think maybe you put David at 1 and me at 2.
Yeah, in our preseason predictions, I think everyone had David 1 and you at 2, or any of the 3 of us that did it, which were me, Thomas, and Andy. And my guess was that David would be top, but struggle in the finals as Kemry. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to reverse that, because he's got. It's always hard to argue who is the most powerful team. He has the most strength 5 in the team. He's managed to overcome one of Kemry's biggest weaknesses and get some agility on his throw Rs. David is an exceptionally technically sound player. He always gets players in really awkward spots.
Yep.
and he's got that nice balance between knowing when to play it safe and knowing when to have that sort of touch of madness moment when he needs to. So we've had two completely different games personally. So the first time we played, it was 0-4 to David, which I think might be the biggest loss I've had in any game of Blood Bowl ever. Where David just battered me into the ground relentlessly. And then round 13 happened, and I won him 3-1. I was like, oh. What's that?
What happened?
That was basically madness, where David had break tackle on one of his mummies, so had a 2+ dodge. And how the game went was I scored first, ended up scoring reasonably quickly with Underworld. Actually was kind of a lucky thing. David very much sort of mitted quite hard and down the center. I was able to have a sort of pass throw around the flank, and that was able to have someone run up the field and score. Then on David's turn, he sort of obviously kicked off to him. He set up the ball in sort of the mid-left backfield. I blitzed to get one person next to the ball carrier and tied up one of his mummies with a player. He went for a 2+ dodgeable re-roll and rolled 1-1. So his player fell on the ground, and I had someone already next to the ball carrier who smacked it loose, and the other person picked up the ball and ran basically the length of the pitch to score again. So sort of went 2-0 up very quickly, and then traded gold off touchdown after that. So
it's one thing you can do against the Khemri, I suppose, is just kind of run down the pitch, because you've got rats as well, haven't you? Got Skaven.
Yeah, so that is Khemri's weakness. They are a slow team. They don't have.
They lack agility.
They lack agility, but David's actually got enough skills on his key players with agility. That's not really an issue.
Yeah. Well, this is the crazy. That's the crazy thing. I remember. So my first game against David was a 2-1. So he beat me. But I feel even now, and I've said this to him several times, and he'll disagree again. But he was so lucky, and I was ahead by 1-0, and I did this stupid thing like, oh, I'll get my tree man to do something, just thinking, oh, I've got this easy because I can run around your players. And I did this stupid thing. I can't remember exactly what. And then he ended up scoring as a result. And then I was about to score again, and I threw the ball, and his throw raw intercepted. This is before he had the agility boost. So he needed the 6 to intercept anyway. He caught it, and then he scored off the back of that. He threw it, just like series of really lucky rolls. I was like, no, come on. And then after that match, that's when he got the agility boost. And then the next match after that, I think when he played you and got the 4-0 win, that's when his second throw raw got the next agility boost. So he's got 2 throw raws with +1 agility. It's insane.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be tough for David to win. He'd need to win, well, a quarter-final, a semi-final, and a best-of-3 final. I think winning a 2 knockout games with Khemri is tough, just because if you do have a game where you roll badly, Khemri are very unforgiving with that speed. That the chance of a shock loss is a bit higher than if you're, say, an elf team where, if someone scores quickly and unexpectedly, you can score one back. But equally, I don't think anyone wants to play David in a knockout match, especially with 4 mummies.
I tell you what, the only thing with the mummies is they've got you have to roll doubles to get block. So I can see why, like, at the start of the tournament they do really well, because they've got the huge strength advantage, and no one's got block, so it's kind of more even. But it's so easy, even if you've got you've got 2 dice each time, or even 3. Like, you get one bad roll with both down, which is again quite easy to do. I think that's the biggest downside, like, when they're developing for a tournament.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. That he's as his team's leveled up, he's got rid of a lot of his weaknesses with those sort of agility ups, but he hasn't necessarily added much to his strengths. If you look at it, he's got quite a lot of tackle and diving tackle. So he's got quite a lot of sort of utility, but he hasn't got more bashy, whereas a lot of teams, especially the Lizardmen, have got a lot bashier when they've leveled up.
Yeah, it's definitely had an effect as well. I think it's very insightful actually, because I feel like, yeah, like you say, the Lizardmen have definitely increased in there. Actually, it's the fact that Thomas has all block, and the fact, Tom, that you've got a Dauntless Skink.
He's got a killing
Well-
machine.
We'll go on to him later, but
Yeah, David's team, I can see that. I can see how, because they've got, obviously he's got that strength, but like you say, the big guys, just when you've got a big guy with 2 rolls and they don't have loner though, do they?
No,
No.
they don't have a disadvantage.
So that's all right. Yeah. So actually, I think that kind of balances it out. But like where I've got, for instance, my tree man, I'll always be trying to roll him later in the game in my turn, because if I know if he fails and goes down, that's it.
Yes, they're more reliable, but that lack of block does mean they're less likely to knock someone over than a couple of other players. But next on the list, someone I had quite low down on my predictions because they were a new player, and someone who's done exceptionally well and is certainly, when it comes to me, unlucky not to be higher, is Thomas with his Lizardman. The reason I mention that is when we played, I scored one very lucky touchdown in the first half. I threw the ball basically the length of the pitch, picked it up, got blitzed down, ball went loose, and I picked it up and dodged away and scored. It's like, that's nice. Well done, random lineman. He then smashed me up for 8 turns in his half, and I managed to annoy him for a while to make the touchdown contested for as long as I could. That match noticeable. Well, that seemingly going to be most notable for the fact that I tried the Bomber star player for the first time, and their sole contribution was to knock himself and 2 of my other players out in the same turn to completely obliterate my defense. So 1-1 going into the last round. Ball kicks off, ends up going out of bounds. Give it to my Goblin, who then gets thrown the full length of the pitch successfully to score and make it a 2-1 win. Because if you take 2 points off my tally and add them to Thomas, he's very much in the contention for top 2.
yeah, I've got to say, if for anyone who the difference between the first time I played him and the second time I played him, if there's like a prize for most improved during the season, I'd say it's Thomas, because I was very lucky to beat him as well. I had to pull off some serious skink foolery to I had to dodge past I think like 3 of his players and then go past them again or something ridiculous like that. So I got lucky with that. But I really wouldn't want to play him in the playoffs.
Yeah, I've got him next round. It's my last game, and I've kind of got a shot to nothing because I know that I'm going to be top 2. I can't not be in that position. I think I'm probably going to end up second, but we'll see. Yeah, that seems like a game where I just don't want to lose all of my team before a playoff game, and anything else is considered a bonus. But yeah, he's been super impressive whenever in the one game I played versus him. How have you found it, Matt?
So yeah, the first time I played him was what round was that? Thomas, what is it? I'll find it. What was it? You can edit this silence out now.
7 and 16.
7 and 16. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember. So I seem to recall it being an easy game the first time, and then obviously the last time we played, he thrashed me. I got the first touchdown in our game. Then he managed to, on the last turn, the last round, it was a double going for a roll where he re-rolled and managed to get his skink right through bottom left corner of the pitch and scored in the first half, last turn of the first half. And then in the second half, I was starting the attack because I defended, and I was like, "Hey, that's fine, I got this." And then somehow, I don't even know what happened. I can't remember now, but just totally destroyed me, and then just scored again, and then I just couldn't claim it back. It was very gentlemanly though, because I was like, he had 2 turns left, and obviously the sensible thing would be to hold on to the ball and stand there. And I was like, "Oh, please don't, just score now." And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Oh, if you do it, I'll try for a 1-turn touchdown. And it will be funny." And he's like, "Fine, but if it somehow gives us 2 turns at the kickoff, then you can't use the second turn." I was like, "All right, fine." So we did that, and my 1-turn touchdown didn't play out. But yeah, he beat me. Beat me fair and square.
Yeah, so he's another contender for punchiest team. All of his Saurus have block and another skill, either tackle or guard, or mighty blow in one case. Has a level 4 Croxagore. I'm not quite sure how he's got so much experience on his Saurus, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he must have. I mean, he must just be hitting people constantly and actually getting injuries. Because obviously, it's just coming down to a dice roll for injury at that point, isn't it?
I've played him, and every time I've played him, he's been very aggressive. So like any chance to hit people, it was kind of like me with Orcs last season. You know, it was more about punching than it was about necessarily scoring. So I can see why he's leveled up so much. But yeah, no, it was. I'm always an advocate of being unnecessarily punchy.
When I played Lizardman last season, I was trying to do that. I was trying to get block on all my Saurus, but they just weren't getting the injuries. You know, just hit people were just like. Or maybe I wasn't being as bashy. I don't know.
I think it goes back to your luck. I mean, next season it's got to get better. I think I'd probably bet on you if you were a decent team next season. I'd probably bet on you winning it just because you've had so much bad luck. Like next season, there's no way you're getting any kills against you. You should be all right.
I don't know.
Well, if you play dwarves, then
if he plays dwarves, he'll definitely they'll definitely get injured. Like it'll just be.
I'm not kidding when I say this. I'm actually kind of tempted to play halflings.
Oh wow! Right.
Ironically, you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't take that many kills.
Yeah, no deaths. Yeah, they all survive.
Oh, don't play halflings. You're too good a player to play halflings.
I mean, they're pretty much guaranteed to lose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly a challenge. We'll put it that way.
Get 2 trees.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the appeal.
You get halfling rerolls.
And you get the Master Chef. Yeah.
Which is legitimately very good at half price. It's pretty good at full price. But yeah, going from Thomas, 2 points ahead of him, and with a technical chance at making the top 2 still, is Matt. Ta-da!
Hello.
Yeah. So, how have you found games against this person?
I found them really annoying, especially when he loses. He becomes this real. I don't know. I have no words.
You do sulk. You do. I mean, I've never beaten you, so I wouldn't know. But even when I injure a few of your players, I could tell that you're just you're not taking it well.
Like, oh no! I think it's because I take the whole thing very seriously, and
so do I.
Oh, I know. I was saying this to James either today or the other day. I was like, I think the people that take it the most seriously are me, Tom, and Euan.
Well, we're 1, 2, and 3 at the moment, so.
I think, and I don't think that's necessarily a reflection of that. I think it's just the way that we.
I'd actually, it depends how you mean. Like in game, probably yes, but out of game, Lackland put an awful lot of research into goblins, which I think is fair enough considering they're such a unique playstyle. But I'd actually say if you did it by sort of hours out of the game, then I'd probably put Lackland top.
I mean, I didn't really think of it that way. I thought of it more as a kind of. I remember, for instance, when things happen in game, and your reaction is always quite strong. You're like, "Oh no!" Like when we last played, you were quite unlucky with a couple of dice rolls. But I don't think there's anything bad. Personally, I don't think there's anything bad about that. I just think it just means that you're well into the game, which I think is perfectly fine.
Should we talk about our last game?
Sorry.
It was literally the last game we played. And
Yeah.
when we played the first time, I think it's fair to say pretty handily smashed you, Matt.
Yes, I think I scored once in the first half, and then you destroyed my team after that.
Yeah. And that was, I think I got a bit carried away with that because I think just about everything that could go right did go right in that, which you kind of need it to happen with Underworld, and that was probably the last like comfortable performance my team put in. And so
That was devastating.
it went to round 17, and I'm like, cool. I won the kickoff, and I thought, right, I'm going to go full power. I'm going to put both my star players in. I just want to beat the living hell out of Matt's team up and end the game in the first half. And it got to about turn 6, and more of my players are injured. I'm going nowhere with the ball. Matt's putting all sorts of pressure on here and there, and I'm like, oh shit. I had enough on my inducements to have a fireball. Had to burn that in the first half when I'm attacking, which I don't really like doing.
That made a difference, though.
No, it did. It did. It cleared the way for me to score.
I thought I was about to, because I thought I was about to take the ball from you at that point. I thought it was pretty much guaranteed, and I gathered all my players there, completely forgetting about the fact that you had a fireball. I was going to push the guy off the pitch, grab the ball, and score. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, what the heck? All these guys are being knocked over.
And then so I got one up, and I'm like, I've got what I needed to do. I did it in turn 8, but I've gone all in, and then Matt does a 1-turn touchdown after 2 of my players get stunned that might have had a chance to stop it, and it was just like,
I was very, very pleased. I've tried to do a 1-turn touchdown in most games leading up to the 17th round, and so when it actually happened, I was like, yeah.
Did one against me, I think, as well. Which
Actually,
pretty sure you did. Did you?
I
think
tried
you did.
it. I definitely tried it. I don't think it actually paid off.
But
maybe.
yeah, and then it got to the second half, and it's just like, this is gonna go badly, and it felt. I'm not sure how it felt for you, but it felt like you were always a turn away from scoring, and I was never even close to that. And
I feel like I got quite unlucky in the second half to not score.
Yes, I agree. You had a go for it over the line, which failed after you'd used your reroll already.
I think so. This is where I said, like, what do you think I should have done here? And you're like, let me think about it and tell you in a minute. Because I could have left him in the corner, and you could have hit him. Then he had sidestep, so I suppose I could have sidestepped to the touchdown line. If you'd not knocked him over, but there was no guarantee that you would. I should have gone. I think going for it was still the right thing to do, even though it's just don't roll a 1, and I rolled a 1.
And even when he fell over and was on the ground, there was still like 3 turns of me having basically no control of the ball in my backfield, where you either had a blitz on the carrier or a punch, or I had to dodge away a couple of times. And thankfully, I got the ball just about back to the halfway line where it went loose next to my troll, who was able to stand over and guard the ball for the last turn or 2, as the rest of my team.
That was annoying. Oh man, yeah. I had to put, because of the fact that you've got tentacles and all my team are too weak to escape from it, I had to put more players in to try and pick the ball up just to throw it away. And obviously, throwing it away while in base contact's like harder. I just couldn't. There were so many opportunities I had, and just they didn't pay off.
Yeah, it's. I felt quite unlucky in the first half, and you were definitely unlucky in the second half. And I think well, I'd like to hope it balanced out, and it ended up as 1-1. But there were definitely, if you just looked at the.
Yeah, I mean,
probably about turn 6 onwards. I
think if you hadn't had the fireball, I think the way that the first half would have gone would have been that you didn't score. I might have scored, or I think it would have been 0 or 1 to me.
If I didn't have the fireball, I'd have enough for a lot of players.
Yeah, it's true. But they'd have been sitting at the sidelines.
Not in the second half. I was down players.
Yeah, I mean in the first half.
Yes.
So I think the fireball saved your first half.
Yes, no question. It stopped. Well, it got me a touchdown, and it almost certainly stopped you getting a touchdown as well.
And I think being an elf team, I should have by all rights scored in the second half. But obviously, your defense was very good. It always is. Yeah, like I say, I think I got quite unlucky with that. It was that one going for a bit where I was pretty much like, it was either that turn or the next turn. It was trying to, yeah. Anyway, it's happened in the past.
I lied. When I said earlier I had the second best touchdowns conceded, I lied. I put the third best. Thomas has got 13, and Thomas we mentioned sort of the best, and I'm on 16 touchdowns conceded. So get that correct in there. But yeah, we mentioned that your games versus Tom's games versus Matt earlier. Do you want to go over them again?
I think talking about fireballs, I didn't know how to use my fireball in the second game. So I did something and then used it, and then it was the end of my turn, which I didn't know. I still don't completely know the rule on it.
So fireball,
in our game,
fireball you use either at the start of your turn before you've done anything, or at the end of the turn when you've done everything.
Yeah, so I moved and then used it, and then it ended my turn. And I remember specifically there was one elf without block in the way of me going to where I wanted to go, and would have been able to cage up, and I'm pretty sure I could have scored. But yeah, again, this is I think both me and Matt will always say we were both unlucky. Like in any game we play, I think we just because of our competitive side, it's never. I kind of gloss over all the things that have gone my way.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
I think as well, especially from Matt's point of view as elves, you basically only failed dice on a 1, and you're like, oh, it's so unlucky. I had a 80% chance to dodge away there and it failed, and you forget the fact that you've done 5 dodges already, and actually that's just the universe balancing out.
Yeah, I mean,
I very much well, I'm not sure if you feel that, but that's when I played elves in season 1, Dark Elf. That's how I felt. I'm like, I rolled a 1, I failed, I can't believe it. And then I'm like, oh, well, of course, that's the only time I am going to fail it and remember it.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, just going. Sorry, just because you said about the ones, I've got to say some like I mentioned about James when I played him. I've never seen so many ones in a row. Like he had one of his players had sure hands, and obviously rolled a double 1 and touched that, and then dropped the ball. And then he tried, I think it was 3 turns in a row to dodge away with his first player away from me, and got 1s every time. So some spectacular bad luck for James. But anyway, yeah, go on.
I was going to say with the 1s, it's more about when they happen. It's when you have things like, oh, this guy's got dodge and he's rolling, running away. And yes, it's possible to roll 2 1s in a row, but it's like, what's that 17% chance of doing that? Is that right?
Yeah.
Or less than that? Because it's yeah, I mean, just the chance is quite low. And there are so many other dice and combinations of dice, and yet, I mean, it was obviously just a 1 roll at that point, so I think you can always take them in as they are on their own almost. But I know what you mean, because I should roll the same number of 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s throughout one game. I should look at the stats really for our game at the end, see what happened. I don't think I was particularly unlucky throughout the whole thing. I think it was just that one moment. It's just when it happens rather than how many times.
It's like everyone, if you've got to go for it to score a touchdown, you will always roll a 1. It's
that's what it seems
how
like.
life works.
Maybe I should just never go for it to score a touchdown. I mean, that was a rule I put in place in my own head a long time ago, but in that circumstance, I was worried that you'd run up and hit me afterwards. It's also the fact that he fell over and then got stunned, because if that hadn't happened, I could have just stood up, picked it up, and just touched down immediately anyway. Again, obviously with the don't roll a 1, because that's what they pick up on. But, yeah, it's a combination of things, isn't it?
Yes.
I was going to say, with the game with me and Tom, I do remember our first game, Tom, where you had your sort of had like this grudge against one particular player, and I seem to recall you sent the whole team into the corner of the pitch after this one war dancer, and then the rest of my team was just like, fine, it was score. I think
You'd already got past me at that point. Like it was, there was no way I was catching him, and yeah, I was just chasing that poor one war dancer all around the pitch.
I do remember you using your wizard now, and I don't think it had any effect on any of the players that you hit with the fireball. I think they all remained standing afterwards.
It was something like that. It was something ridiculous.
I'm pretty sure. And there was one game I did against Andy where he had the lightning bolt and he used it on my guy while he was holding the ball at the edge of the pitch. And it didn't have any effect on him either. Actually, I've had 2 fireballs and a lightning bolt used on me, and Euan, your fireball, I'm not sure how many people it hit, but it took out 2 or 3, I think.
I think it took out 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3, okay. So that was the most successful wizard attack against me all season.
I think it's also worth pointing out that Matt's team has a strength 4 strip ball war dancer, who is the best single player in the league ever.
Yeah, I mean it happened very early on as well. It was a very good player. This is the guy that gets, but he doesn't really do anything because everyone attacks him. So the game I had against MacLeod, it was just me or him on the floor being chainsawed for like the first half. Like, no, that's it. He's done. And then there was a game I think I had against Thomas where he tried to leap early in the game and killed himself. I apothecaried that, of course.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying someone on Thomas's team has got leap. I was like, how many skills does this guy have?
No. But I tried to leap. I've had a lot of bad luck, I feel like, with leap as well. But
he died against me, and you apothecary him back to life as well in the first game.
Oh right, okay. So he has died. Yeah,
died a lot of times.
This is why I'm saving the apothecary. This is why I've had other deaths. If a lineman dies, I just have to let it happen because the strength 4 war dance is too much. I mean, he's got niggling injuries as well. I think on my team I've got the tree man has a smashed hip. I think he's been injured more than any tree man should be. The chance of them getting actual injuries is quite low because they've got very high armor. But anyway, Spruce Willis, who's the war dancer with the extra strength, has missed next game. That was damage back. Is that a niggling injury? Damage back? I think it is, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
So he gets injured more as a result of this injury.
Makes it more tempting to hit him, but still does nothing.
Yeah, you're not going to convince anyone listening to this to not hit him in future, by the way, Matt.
No, that's fine. And actually, I remember we were discussing at one point having a reward for assassination of certain players, and I think I'm very much up for that. I think overall the consensus is probably let's not do that, but I was kind of open to the idea because I thought you could do something that benefits the player with that hit. You'd say have a vote, and people say, "Oh yeah, we want to get rid of that guy," and however much the bounty is on their head, I get that each game he doesn't get killed.
Oh, that's not how it would work.
No, but I think it should.
But yes, there's a possibility of bounties, and we're for season 4, and we'll have a little chat about that next week and see if there's anything good everyone can come up with.
I think we have to think about how. Yeah, I mean, we can discuss it, but I think having the rules in a way that means that you don't have too many bounties all on one player or something, so they're spread out among teams.
But in second place with 16 games played and 34 points, not 100% guaranteed to be top 2, but highly likely and probably most likely to end up as top. We have Tom.
You're going down, Tom.
Yeah, captain 1-0, I guess. That's what I go for every single game.
Yeah, because you've got of the other players in the top 5 who are assured of their playoff spot, you've got the least number of touchdowns scored, but
yeah, I'm not about
by
that.
far and away the least touchdowns conceded.
That's a good way to play, though. It's very safe.
Unless I'm playing elves, obviously.
Yeah. So Matt apart, you've been unbelievably difficult to break down. And when you consider that's essentially the formula that won my dwarves the league last season, that's a pretty good place to be in. But yeah, my games against Tom have both been 1-1 and pretty hard fought ones at that as well.
Yeah.
I felt the first one I had a slight edge and was slightly disappointed it was a draw, and the second one I felt you had an edge and was quite relieved it was a draw. So quite happy with that overall.
There was a point where I had a 4+ handoff from skink to skink to get that to 2-1. So I just needed a 4+. But I'm gonna say, like, you know, I think it both were kind of deserved draws overall.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
But I still don't quite understand how you do so well with the Utopia experiment. I get that now you've buffed them up. Yeah, I still don't get it. I mean, the particular highlight for me was where you'd put your tentacles troll on my murder skink, which is a terrible idea. And he managed to. Did he stun him? I think I stunned your troll.
I can't recall. But I remember he got punched in the face by your bloody skink. And I'm like, why? Why does your skink keep beating my team up?
I mean, he's my favourite player of all time, and probably will be my favourite player of all time. He's got 3 injuries, caused 3 injuries as a skink, so I think that, you know.
Is this Usain Bolt?
Yeah, that's the one. He's an absolute hero.
He's just got Dauntless. It's not like he's got block or even
Mighty
wrestle,
Blow.
Mighty Blow, I think. No, he's just got Dauntless, and he's a killing machine.
He's also, I think he's got the 3 injuries plus someone ran past him and he tripped him up and caused another injury. So I think technically he's got 3, but he injured another one when someone ran past him.
We actually played another game just for fun with an necrotic team versus the lizardman team, and he killed some people in that as well.
There's something wrong with him.
Yeah, he's just a warm-blooded murderer.
Yeah, he had his Weetabix for breakfast.
But yeah, Matt, do you want to bring up you've thrashed Tom both times you've played him again?
Yeah, so
I'll tell you what, like, the thing is, the first one I was okay with. Like, I was just learning how to play lizards, and it was very different to orcs. But the second one, because I lost 3-0 on the first time, I'd been playing quite a lot that week, just to try and work out how I'd beat Matt, and yeah, no, I was furious about the second loss.
Yeah,
sorry.
That second loss in round 11. Since then, you've only conceded 1 touchdown, which was against me in our draw. All the rest have been scoreless against you, which is rather impressive.
Well, thank you. I'm the Jose Mourinho of Blood Bowl, if anyone knows what that means.
I don't know enough about football. Something about parking the bus.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. You've worked him out.
I wish I could not let as many in, because then I'd be doing better.
I mean, you've scored 32.
32, yeah.
Yeah, I know, but
almost twice as many as Tom.
Yeah, but you know, it's also about not letting them score against you, because I've also had.
Well, you've got the best touchdown difference, Matt, which is essentially worth half a point when you think about it. And
I suppose, yeah.
Crucial.
It's also
it has proved crucial for a lot of players in the past. Well, our season, for example.
Mm.
I mean, at this point, if it stays the same and I end up second and Matt ends up third, it's going to be a proper grudge match for the semi-final if Matt gets through, obviously. Yeah.
I mean, I think. I'm just trying to think how this is going to go. I think, Tom, you are going to beat MacLeod whenever you play him.
I'm not sure.
You beat him last time.
Second.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. Go on then.
Finally, last and least, or last and currently top, 17 games, 36 points, is me. Hurrah! Yay!
I'm coming for you.
Yeah. And I think, well, unless anyone has any comments on the games that we've played against each other that you want to bring up now?
You're just disgusting to play against.
Yeah.
Just
How are you there? Why are you doing this to us?
How is your
Underworld is
strength?
secretly superpowered?
It was when yeah, it was when your strength 1 goblin was put in a place where I couldn't hit him. But he was. It was just.
I think sometimes when you've done well, people assume that something is a master plan when it's just good luck.
It can't be this much good luck though.
I mean, just too consistent for good luck, because every single season you've been the winner.
I mean,
Apart from this season,
there's
it's
been
not going
two
to happen.
previous seasons, so
3?
no, we're in 3.
Wait, oh yeah, sorry.
Uh,
2 previous, yes, that's right, okay. But, I mean, not even... I mean, you've only had 1 loss in the whole thing.
what I would say is that my team very much felt like they hit their straps around sort of 8 to 12, and it doesn't. It feels like they've peaked in terms of performance and where their like relative TV is at their best, and it's really felt like they've been struggling the past few weeks.
Yeah.
And
Certainly found your team easier the second time I played them.
Yeah.
But then I
mean,
suppose
a
they
lot
were
of that is
less capable of destroying my team for some reason.
a lot of their strength, similar to goblins, is that they have a lower TV value, and therefore they're hiring in inducement people, and those inducement people obviously aren't leveling up. So the things that made them, so they've got progressively weaker over time compared to the others, I think.
Yeah.
But considering that when I started the season, my aim for them was I just wanted to make the playoffs. I wanted to get top 6, and to end up in the semi-final. I am delighted, and what happens in the semi-final happens.
I mean, they aren't actually a bad team, it seems to me. I mean, there's obviously that kind of...
They're considered tier 3, but I think they're right at the top of tier 3. They actually, in the new edition, they get to add a gutter runner to their team and something else, I think, instead of a lineman, I think, or instead of one of the blitzers. So I think they're pretty strong in that one.
I think that their access to mutations, though, like the fact that you have the tentacled troll, is
he is
deadly to any team with any
tentacled
agility.
troll is unbelievably good most of the time, and he's at his best when he's doing nothing.
Well, exactly, because you don't want to be doing anything with him really, because you don't want to risk having that kind of both down sort of, and then your troll gets knocked down. Because standing up with tentacles, he is just the most useful block.
Yeah, I mean, some teams like playing against Khemri and Lizardman to a certain extent, who will punch him
They
around.
can just walk away. Yeah.
They're in such spaces where they're not going to be dodging most of the time anyway, so it's kind of a useless upgrade. But against the elves team and against Kate's undead, the troll getting into the ghouls in that game was so key in the first game, where it just blocked up all of her normal scoring threats. The troll's been the MVP of the team by a long way.
And the first game I played you, I hadn't had any experience with tentacles before then, or rather, I think I had maybe one.
Yeah,
did David have them once?
David had a beast of Nurgle in season 1, and it was a nightmare to play against. And the troll is basically a almost equivalent player after when it levels up. It's essentially the same as a beast of Nurgle.
Yeah, I essentially didn't remember what tentacles did, and it was, I think, part of my downfall in the first game we played.
Yes.
Obviously, I was very aware of it the second time because it's
that's
so
also the
deadly.
problem. That I've used all of my tricks up, and now I've got to think of a new one for the playoffs. But
yeah,
I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, should we do some predictions for the outstanding games?
Sure.
So starting off, we've got the rather belated round 12 Andy versus Lachlan. Who's your money on?
I think I think Andy has a chance. The last time they played, Lachlan won, but I would put my money on Andy there.
Yeah, and Lachlan doesn't have the Knuffles or Alter either, so he shouldn't be as
It's
strong.
away game for Lachlan. So you won't have a stadium upgrade, which is very useful for goblins. I think it's hard to argue. I can't see Lachlan winning. I'm gonna hedge my bets and say draw. Just because I look at Lachlan's like front line lineup, the muscle he can put out. I don't think Bretonia can handle at the start, but later in the game,
Yeah.
Bretonia I think will come back into it really strong, and the goblins won't be able to do much. So I think that's going to be a 1-1 draw, which favours Lachlan, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think where he is, obviously he wants the win, but yeah, a draw is still good for him. I mean,
Lachlan wants
draw,
the win, and he really needs the win.
yes, and obviously that game is going to very much affect what's happening to James, because obviously he's in contention for that last playoff spot still. And if the draw happens there, it's still not great for James, but it's better than the win from Lachlan, obviously.
It's interesting because it's kind of bad for James if Lachlan wins or draws, but equally Andy winning really puts him in the contention, so he's got another rival for that 6th spot. So
it's a case where he'll want to have another rival though, because he needs to then get the win later on against. Well, he needs to beat me, really, doesn't he?
So Kate versus Andy, round 16 game. Previously, this was a 2-1 win for Andy. I think, especially now Kate's out of it, I think you have to say Andy's favourite for that one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna
I think Andy goes in as favourite personally.
I'm gonna vote for Kate. I think she's due a win, and I don't think she's as bad as her 3 wins in the tournament has said. I think she'll get a win.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could go. I think it's one that could go either way. I think obviously them being siblings has a little bit of a rivalry there as well. I think Andy will go into the game perhaps underestimating Kate, because I think he has this mindset of, oh, she's just my sister.
It's interesting you mentioned the sibling thing, because I think the most unpredictable game to predict is actually you versus David, Matt.
Yeah.
Because I always think whatever the form is and whatever the matchup is, that one always seems to be a 50-50. And normally speaking to you both afterwards, whoever loses, like, damn, I was so unlucky in that one, and I just need to do this another one.
Matt says that in every game, though.
I think.
Well,
I think it's more so in that one, and it's the fact that I think Matt's first win was against David when he was doing very well in season 1, for example.
Right, fair.
And it's just like
I think wherever I always feel confident going in against David for some reason, and I don't know if it's just because I'm like, it's just my little brother, I can beat him or whatever.
I feel like if you could win 5 games in a row, Matt, and be smashing everyone, and then somehow David would pull out a win against you, and it would just be like, oh yeah, that's what's happened. It just feels it feels a really unpredictable one to call that one.
I still maintain I was very unlucky in round 3 against David. I also did do some really stupid thing with my tree man, like I said, but dice rolls didn't go my way.
So round 17, which technically finishes tomorrow. Kate versus David. I think I would put David as favourites. They're 2 relatively similar teams, and David has a strength advantage and not too much of an agility disadvantage.
Yeah, I'd have to go for David as well.
Yeah, I think so. Just because they're so similar, and I think maybe if Kate gets, this is the thing I see about David's team. I think the 4 what are they called, the mummies that he's got, they have that thing. What's it called, decay or something? If they get injured, they take 2 injury rolls or
Yes.
2. So I don't think I've seen anyone get an injury against them, but I feel like if that happens,
I've tried
it would
a
make
couple
a
of
difference.
times, and I don't really have the strength to take advantage of that. But it's such, when you've got 4 of them, and they normally tend to have a supporting cast around them, it's so hard to outmuscle them to get that to actually be a disadvantage, I found.
Yeah, I was just trying to stay away from him, even as Lizard Man.
Yeah, I think the only team that could realistically beat them up for a consistent period of time is, ironically, Lachlan's Goblins. He can match strength on strength, which is a weird thing
Oh,
to
that
say.
was-
Most of his players are strength 2.
That was a beautiful touchline. Is it touchline? When they had some ridiculous amount of strength on both their
Oh, yeah, the line of scrimmage.
line of scrimmage. Yeah.
And yeah, David had 4 strength 5, and Lachlan had 2 strength 7. I think 2 strength 5, and possibly a strength 6. I think the special troll might, the star player troll might be 6.
Yeah, he is.
I think that was the game where Lachlan messaged me and he went, "I've got over 400 in inducement money to spend." And it's going to be even more in the last round. No, Lachlan's away, so it might not be. It's probably going to be more in the last round. That is going to be a hell of a game to watch. Tom versus Lachlan. Tom, you don't have to predict. We try and avoid self-predictions because it gets a bit awkward. But if you want to, feel free.
Going for a
I feel
5-0
like-
win. No.
Yeah. I
To
feel
Lachlan.
like. Oh yeah, that's it. I do actually feel like you'll probably win that, Tom.
Yeah, I agree as well.
You can obviously outpower them with the strength, and you can outpace them with the skinks.
Yeah, and I think as well, goblins and I think to a lesser extent Underworld have a bigger advantage at the start, and it slightly diminishes as it goes along, especially when they're playing the TV game. Yeah, I think it was 2-0 to Tom in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if it was very similar this round either.
I would also like to add at this point though that I'm voting for Lachlan to win, so I'll be cheering him on.
Yeah. I would also like Lachlan to win because it gives me a shot at top. But
Oh, so much negative energy though.
actually, I said it was going to be 2-0, but seeing Tom's previous results makes me think it's going to be 1-0. But there we are.
Yeah, I won't even. I'm so proud of the 1-0s. So like, even if I've got the possibility, I won't even try.
Yeah, I'm just going to.
Well, yeah, no, a win is a win. Yeah.
And finally, we have Andy versus Ross. Ross hasn't been part of the league for 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks now. So barring
I'm gonna
I'm going to go Andy. It's 2-0 win.
Yeah, I think
That's
so,
a shocker, isn't it?
Yeah, the standard forfeit win. How about that? And then finally, we've got our round 18 matches, which we all play at the same time, in theory. I think we've got 6 people confirmed. I can't remember if the other 2 have confirmed.
Who are the other 2?
I feel Andy hasn't, and I feel someone else. I feel either Lachlan or David hasn't, but I can't recall. I'll put a WhatsApp message up after this and just prod them. So first up, we have Thomas versus me.
I'm gonna go for Thomas. I think I hated playing against him, and I just get the feeling that he might do you a bit. I think I'm gonna just say a 2-1 to Thomas because I just think he's on the ascendancy at the moment.
Yeah, I think.
Very hard to argue with that.
I think again, based on what you were saying, Euan, about how you feel like your team's doing worse over time now. Plus, I mean, the fact that I played him and he beat me, and then I played you immediately afterwards, and obviously we ended up with a draw. But I kind of feel like he was tougher as an opponent in the last game, because I've obviously just played the both of you. So I also think probably Thomas. But then, having said that, who are you? And you, you always seem to pull it out of the bag. So it could go anyway. I think it's going to be a tie.
Just because
I think the only advantage I have is that looking at how the points go up, I've got a 2-point lead on Tom with a guarantee that if I fail, nothing bad happens. So I can go for a lot of crazy plays, and it doesn't really matter if they fail. It only matters if they succeed. Because I don't think a draw really helps, but a win would help. It just puts the pressure on Tom a little for that top spot. So if I win, it's because I've got the chance. I've got a free shot and it doesn't really matter if I lose. So
Whatever happens to Thomas there, he's in now, isn't he?
yeah, Thomas can't be overtaken. He can't get a top 2 spot. He can at best finish with 33 points. So he could get a home quarterfinal.
He's better than me, so he did get third.
He could get third. It's probably between you two for third. But
I'd like to think it was between me and Tom for second.
Well, it's between you and a Tom. Like,
yeah.
whatever happens.
Tom's to the left of me, Tom's to the right. Stuck in the middle with Euan.
David versus Lachlan then, in the muscle off, and then when Lachlan's players get sent off, the lack of muscle off.
I think David is going to win that.
I thought Lachlan would win this the first time round, and he didn't. So unless David thinks he's through, it doesn't matter if he loses, and keeps all his mummies super safe, which I don't think is a good tactic. I think the kickoff in that one's huge. I think whoever wins that is at a huge advantage. But yeah, I think David wins that one probably 70% of the time. So yeah, he goes in his favourite.
Yeah, I agree. I think the kickoff, because if you've got David starting on the attack and he can put his players where he likes, then yeah, I think no contest. Because if you can push the ball out, keep it, score early enough on that, then the players get kicked off the pitch. I mean, he's a slow team though, isn't he? So it's just a case of holding on to the ball and walking it down.
I'll go 0-0, just for fun. How is 0-0 fun? That's how defensive a player coach I am.
The ideal game, a 0-0 draw. Then we have Matt versus James. So Matt again, feel free to skip this. I think Matt's team is, essentially a better version of the High Elves. I'm not sure the relative advantage in armor is going to matter enough in this one for James, especially with the tree man in the middle counteracting a lot of that. So I think Matt to win sort of a 3-2 type game.
I'm hoping for a James win, obviously because of the rivalry. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Wood Elves they're just better than the High Elves. There's nothing to do with play. But yeah, I'm hoping for a James
Matt has
win.
also been playing very well this season, so it's not just
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. But they're both quite close friends, so I don't want to. I don't want to take sides really. It'll be a 0-0 win for everyone.
It'll be a 0-0 filmfest.
Yeah.
In the rain.
No, I don't think any elf against elf game could possibly be a 0-0. Surely, I'm gonna go for a 4-4.
It depends, because sometimes in I used to think in rugby, especially when you got two attacking backfill teams play against each other, the forwards in both teams were like, we out-muscle someone for a change, we're just going to smash into them for 80 minutes. And I wonder if that's what the elf team could go into, that James goes, aha, I've got a slight strength advantage in this game, I'm just going to try and beat the living shit out of the wood elves and not try and worry about scoring, and Matt might try and do the same, because he's like, aha, I out-muscle someone, let's try and fight each other. So
I mean, I'd love it either way. As long as there's lots of injuries and Matt gets lots of deaths, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, if there are lots of injuries, then there definitely will be deaths. But I think I think it probably wouldn't be very sensible to have a bashy fight at this point. But I mean, I think that might even be James's. I think might be James's best chance. I think. Without giving a score prediction, I would say that generally speaking, when I play against James, he is always a very good contender, and especially now that we've got kind of fairly similar teams. Obviously, we got 2-2 last time we played. I think he does stand a chance. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be. It's not going to be, it's not going to be a walkover or anything. I'm definitely going to have to work for it.
I think there are. I think as a general rule in this league, we've proven there's been no walkovers with any team versus anyone else. I don't think there's any like particularly polarized matchups. Like last season, for example, I had Chaos Dwarfs versus Kate's Amazon team, which is just horrendously unfavored for the Amazons because hooray, they all have dodge, and hooray, I all have tackle, and you don't have dodge anymore. And I don't think this season, at least, there's any matchup that strikes out as particularly unfavorable. Possibly like Lizardman versus a couple of teams might be very tough for the non-Lizardman teams, but not because of the matchup.
I think because of all the block.
So Kate has already beaten Ross 2-0, which is impressive, but fair enough. And that leaves Tom versus Andy. And I think Andy's going to really struggle because he's essentially a Bashy team against a Bashier team. And it's hard to outrun Lizardman as well. So Tom to not lose that, there might become a position where he just thinks, because if Tom beats Lachlan, which we're predicting he does, then he's probably happy with just a draw on the last game. So it could even be a draw. I don't need to take any risks. Just to make sure Euan doesn't overtake me. But
Andy's going to need the win as well, I think.
Yeah. I think that plays into Tom's hand as well. That at some point Andy's got to really go for it, and Lizardman can score so quickly when the ball gets loose.
But I wouldn't put it short of Andy taking the win though, because I think the combination of the abilities he has on his team definitely help against skinks. So things like wrestle, or just what are his abilities again?
I think Fend is
Fend,
the key
yes.
one, because it stopped Lizardman getting into a really punchy, grindy game. That does help Andy, that he keeps players a bit more free and mobile than you might expect. But I think getting through those Lizardmen is going to be really tough. And if
as long as he just watches.
I mean, I want Andy to win that. So best of luck.
Yes, so do I. I like the way that all three of us have been like, yeah, we don't want Euan or Tom or Matt to win.
I mean, Matt, I don't mind if you win. I'm in that new versus James game, I'm completely neutral. So
okay, yeah, I mean,
you winning doesn't affect my standing. Because you go to 35 points if you win, and I'm on 36 even if I lose. So
yeah. I mean, it's definitely like no matter what happens here, I think it's going to be you in first, Euan, Tom in second, me in third, assuming that Thomas doesn't manage to do something amazing, and if I lose to James, then James will be, and he'll end up in, he'll end up in sixth.
Yeah. Sorry. You want to do your full rundown of final prediction?
Sorry, what was that?
Basically, ignore me. Keep going.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I think it'll be you in first, Tom in second, me in third. As much as I would like to be in second, I think with Tom having 2 games left and the ability to win, and Ori being 1 win ahead of me, with less games. Is that right? Yeah, you're on 10 wins and I'm on 9, and you've played 1 less than me. So I think yeah, it'll be Euan, then Tom, then me. Then it'll be Thomas. This is assuming he doesn't. I mean, if he wins, then yeah, I think basically it's going to be as it is now. But this is assuming that James doesn't. So if James beats me, he'll be in 6th. But if I beat him, I don't think he'll be in at that point. I think that the last spot is probably the trickiest to say. But I think David will be in 5th where he is now.
So who is your prediction for 6th then?
I think it's going to be Lachlan.
Schmoblins.
Yeah, the Schmoblins. I think they're going to be able to just sort of pull it out the bag at the last minute and sort of sneak in nicely at the end.
And then, do you have James or Andy in 7, 8?
Oh, I think it depends. If Andy gets all of his games done, then I think he has the potential to overtake James. But I would probably say it will be Lachlan 6th, James 7th, Andy 8th. Then obviously Kate 9th, Ross 10th.
Yeah, Kate could overtake Andy and Lachlan.
I'm
and
sort of
finish
assuming
finish
that
7th, but that would be incredibly impressive if Kate managed to do that from here.
I'm sort of assuming that Andy's going to be able to play all of his games and in that kind of prediction. But my hope is that James would actually make it into 6th instead of Lachlan. But I think that Lachlan probably has a better chance having the fact that he's got to play Andy still, and James hasn't got any games left. He's only got his last round one. And obviously Lachlan's got you, Tom. But I do think, like I said, that you'll win. So I think, I think that's probably how it's going to end up. I think Lachlan will be able to come into 6th.
So I think, looking at things, I think Tom is going to pit me to first right in the last round.
Oh gosh.
I'm gonna put myself at second. Matt, yeah, I think you're third. I think you're third. Thomas at 4th is hard to argue with, although no, actually, I think David. I think I'm going to put David at 4. He's playing 2 people below him in the rankings and has a chance to catch up and overtake. And if he wins both, Tom can't beat him, at least via my slightly dodgy maths. So yeah, it only really affects who plays at home in the semi, which of them comes 4 or 5. But
Yeah.
And then they get to actually fight out for the one that matters.
Do either of them have stadium upgrades? Do you know? David does.
No, without checking.
David has 2 stadium upgrades. I don't think he's written it in there,
Okay.
but I seem to remember him mentioning.
I know James has one, which is the one where you stop pitch invasion, which came up twice in our game, unfortunately. Incredibly.
With the upgrade or without the upgrade?
It came up when he had the upgrade, so they didn't happen.
Okay.
Which is a shame because I quite like pitch invasions as Underworld. Hooray! We've got less players, and I have less shit players then. I was kind of trying to do the maths. I think if I'm saying Lachlan beats Andy, he goes a point ahead of James, and then it's hard to see either of them getting many points in their last in the last round. So I think I'm putting Lachlan just ahead of James, but that game versus Andy is so crucial. I think Andy will struggle to get all the games in time and might come a crop at that. So I'm putting James above him. Especially as James has got points on the board and Andy's in that stage where he needs to win, and one poor moment. Especially as he's kind of got the pressure of needing to win rather than just get a draw here and there.
Yeah, but Andy has such a good chance at actually doing something with it. You know, he's got such potential right now.
And he does have a game versus Ross, so he's got he's essentially played 15, got 16 points. So yeah, if you think of his played 15 on 16, if he beats Lachlan, he overtakes Lachlan and is a point behind James with a game in hand. So it's 6th, I think, is definitely the hardest to call. But I think I'm agreeing with you that I'm going Lachlan, then James and Andy, because it's easy when you've got points on the board, because again, draws are relatively common, and Andy's got to really push it. And as much as I'd like to see Kate overtake either Andy or Lachlan, I think she's got a pretty she's got a very tough game against David. And even if she beats Andy, she might not overtake him in points. So Kate down in 9th. and Ross obviously at bottom. Yeah. A, because he's not in it, and B, because it's a mathematical certainty, even if he rejoins, that he'd be at bottom. It was a shame. He was just getting. His most impressive result was just as he finished.
And he did some damage to my team before he left.
Oh yeah.
And he scored. His first score was against me, and then obviously that game where he had against David, there was the tie. So it was the only way was up.
So Tom, your prediction?
Okay, because I'm the eternal pessimist. I'm gonna do the worst case scenario. Well, I think I'll probably at least get, say, 2 draws in the last one. So I'd still put Euan first. But I still think you're gonna.
Two draws would put you. Wouldn't mean anyone else could catch up. So yeah.
Yeah. So Euan first. Me second. But I can't put myself first. It puts too much pressure on myself.
Well, I was actually thinking because if we end up on the same points, it goes to touchdown difference, and we're very close at the moment. I think what I'd like to say, if there's 2 people tied, it goes to head, which doesn't matter for us because it was 1-1. The next metric then is you remove the round 1 game, which means it's slightly in my favour because I lose 1 point and you lose 3. So I've essentially got 0.0001 points, but the touchdown difference is worth there. So
Okay.
So yeah, there's a very reasonable chance we end up on the same number of points, and it comes down to touchdown difference.
Yeah, I'm fine either way. So Euan first, me second. I'm gonna be mildly controversial and say Thomas third. I think Jay.
No.
I think Jay's is gonna just have a worldie. I'm trying to work this out now. So Thomas third, Matt fourth, just because this is grudge. I don't know who's next. Is it David?
Yeah,
David. And then, because like I said, James having a worldie, he'll stay in 6th. Then Lachlan, and then Andy, and then Kate. There we go.
I think if James does beat me, then yeah, I think he'll end up in 6th.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the 6th place playoff is in, every single point is so crucial in that, whereas I'm not sure it's quite the same peril at the top.
Well, it's like I said.
I think back to the position where he'd very much like to get second, but I don't think his heart's set on it now.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be in 1st or 2nd because then I only have to worry about playing. Well, I'm not going to be in 1st. That's not possible. But I'd love to be in 2nd because then I only have to worry about playing whoever it is that wins between 3rd and 6th position, which, I mean, is you, Tom, potentially at that point. If I'm in 2nd, then you're in 3rd, and then you just have to beat probably Lachlan at that point. So then it would be me versus you in the semi-final.
So should we do a theoretical? Because I think we're all pretty. Should we go with average on the placements then, for what we think the finals would be? So
versus Lachlan by the look of it.
So combining the results, that means I would be top, Tom would be second. I think we had 2 people as Matt as 3rd and Lachlan. So Matt versus Lachlan is 3rd versus 6th. And I think I think away from home especially, I think I put Matt as quite a strong favourite in that. Would else have the chance to score quickly and get those players off quickly as well?
If I deliberately lost to James, I would end up in 4th. I'd have to go against David, but I'd still be home, assuming he doesn't know because he can't count. Can he?
David could go 31, 34, so he could overtake you. David's still got a theoretical chance at 2nd, but
oh yeah, of course.
Unlikely. Tom would have
relies on me and Tom not doing anything.
Yeah. Then 4th versus 5th would be David versus Thomas. That would be that's a hell of a game.
That's worth a watch. I'd be going for maybe it's because we're both lizard nutmen and have the same name, but I'd be rooting for Thomas in that one.
I think I saw them play in round whenever they played in the first half of the season, and it was a real close game.
Style changes as well.
I'd favour
When it's knocked down.
he was in the top 2, which had their own playoff there. Got batties him, and then you
The Wolves or something. I seem to recall really now how I managed to beat him in the end.
It was a very impressive run to the final, including the final. So you just lost it. David versus Thomas prediction.
Whom I'd like to say that David. I'm going to say a tie, but then that means it's Thomas because he's in advance. He's
yeah.
So
if it's a tie after
Thomas.
extra time, it goes to higher league position. And sorry, Tom, I've forgotten. Did you go for Thomas in the end as your prediction for that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay. So that means we would have as the semi-finals, me versus Matt. No, sorry. No. Me versus Thomas.
Tom versus me.
Yeah. Well, who do you think would win the me versus Thomas game first? I guess.
I mean,
we answered this a second ago for round 18. Let's see if the answer is the same in the semi-final. Actually,
I tell you what, because it's just because you're so experienced. Like I can't see you losing two games against the same player. But I'm going to stick to my previous prediction and just say Thomas. Mostly because I want to see, and this kind of says my prediction for the other game. I kind of want to see a all Lizardman final.
It's not going to happen, Tom. If I go against you, you're going down.
Well, that's the thing. So you're both voting for yourself in. Oh, sorry. What's your prediction in Thomas versus me? Actually,
I think I'm gonna have to agree with Tom. I think if Thomas has to go against you again, then I went for.
I think I don't know.
It's just really.
I want to, like I said, I want to see a Lizardman final, but I actually think Euan is. I don't know why I've gone the exact opposite to.
You changed your mind. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go for Euan just because it's you. It's like you. No.
Yeah, you just have to be able to consistently win, and so I think that's always in you. I'm going to go for Thomas. I'm just going to say it. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's my prediction.
Okay.
Still a bloody good showing from Thomas if he gets to a semi-final in his first go.
Definitely.
I've got to predict who wins out of you
versus
two.
Matt. You've got to go.
I tell you what. I think you've got to go on previous form, which is Matt. And I think, as well, given previous games, I would rather play Matt in a final if I got there, because I think beating 2 Lizardmen as Underworld in back-to-back games to me, that just sounds impossible. So, although Thomas is the winner in our game, so a Thomas versus Matt final is our combined prediction.
Is it? Because I voted for you.
Oh, did you?
In the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Oh.
think Matt did as well, didn't you?
Well, I said I'm voting for Thomas, though I think. Because I don't. I really don't. I mean, I would probably say what I said before, which is tie, because that's just me sitting on the fence, and then that puts it to Euan because of he's home. So it would be Euan in that
Okay,
case.
so it's a me versus Matt final then, which would be
Even
a
if
repeat
it's
of last
yeah.
season.
Even if it's a me versus you or a me versus Thomas, I think that the odds of my winning that are probably about the same at this point.
And I think seeing how much the pendulum had swung and how lucky I was not to win our last game, I would sadly have to say Matt to win, especially as
Matt as well.
touchdown difference is quite important in how we do our finals. And like I could see Underworld winning 2-1 and then Matt just winning like 3 or 4-1. And then means I have to really win the last game by a lot to keep it interesting.
I mean, the thing is, of course, it's going to be 3 matches, and you're always going to have the inducement money.
But I mean, the reason I've got inducement money is because my team's worse.
No, but the inducement money has the ability to create a big swing potentially. Like that wizard either pays off or it doesn't. But the strength it has when it does pay off is a lot more than I think the value that it's worth. And I guess that's obviously calculated into the cost of the thing and the potential for it to not work. Yeah, exactly. So, and the fact that you could buy it 3 games in a row has the potential for some harm.
So we've got. So our league predictor is actually the same as the one I did at the start, which would be Matt winning it, coming in from 3rd in the head-to-heads. Albeit we've got quite a few 50-50 calls in there, which are going to happen over the course of the playoffs.
Wait, as you're both in the final, I guess it's down to me to say the.
Oh, sorry,
It's the winner, isn't
well,
it?
Matt's gone for himself, I thought, and I went for him, so it's a.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, fair play, fair play.
What is your prediction?
You both know what my prediction is. If Matt's in any game, I'm gonna.
What do you think, Euan? I do think you have a fair chance there, Euan. It depends, because again, I'll lose players if you beat me up again. I'll lose my players, and then I won't have them the next game. And
I mean, that works both ways. And you beat me up last time we played.
True.
And you've definitely got a speed and agility advantage.
But genuinely, I think this year I am kind of, as much as I've got a grudge. It's not a real grudge, by the way. Like one of the nicest people I've ever met, but I'm just kind of hoping that it's not the same winner for 3 seasons in a row. So I probably, if Matt beats me, which I don't think he will, I don't think he'll do it 3 times in a row. I think Matt will probably deserve to be the winner.
Yeah, I mentioned sort of in one of the chats that I'm like, I want to win the league again this season because I'm a competitive person.
Yeah.
I also brought a trophy for this season, winner. Well,
You give to yourself,
which I don't want to give to myself. But
you give it to the
I
Wooden
do
Spoon
think.
Award.
But let me give it to Ross if he didn't play. That might be quite funny, actually. I might do that. But yeah, I do think it's good for the league's health in general. If I think if there's a different winner each season is a good thing. So I'm picking up crumbs of comfort if I win or don't win.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, my I said at the start, my aim for this season was to get top 6 and see what happened in the playoffs with Underworld. And given the worst I can finish now is 3rd/4th, I'm very happy with what I've done with them regardless. So anything else from here is just pure bonus.
Cool.
And then we have our next season where who knows what will happen, but we'll do a different podcast previewing that.
if
And
I end up
looking back on
having
the finals.
halflings like I suggested, then I don't think I'll do particularly well. But I
Then
think it'll
I'd
be funny.
probably put you as bottom, Matt. But who knows? Maybe if there's well, I was gonna say even if there's an ogre team, I think I still put you as bottom.
Well, the ogres are rubbish. You sure?
Yes.
Yeah, but halflings are pretty
Yeah.
bad as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a braver person than me if you go halflings next season. But
Well, if you win, Euan, what will you do next season?
I think I know which of two teams I will be. If I don't win, then I'm going to be Necrotic, 'cause they're just a fun team. And I'm pretty sold on them. I was very nearly them this season. If I lose, then if I win, then I'm probably going to end up being Vampires because they look fun but are a bad team.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% on Vampires though.
I tried them out after Andy played with them last season, and they're interesting.
Yeah, they can do some very cool things, but
They eat their own team.
They eat their own team, and there's going to be a point where you're about to do something really cool, and then one of your players runs off the pitch to drink someone's blood in the crowd, and it feels so bad. And I'm not sure if I can live with that. So if you go into halflings, at least you have no expectations, I guess.
Well, I don't know. I might just put too much pressure on myself and then sulk for the whole of however long the league is.
It's a long league to have a team that's just awful. But yeah, I'm fully up for you getting battered for a whole league.
I love the idea that you pick halflings, and then Tom picks someone like dwarves who've just got a really very strong matchup against them, amongst everything having a strong matchup against halflings.
I'm tempted though. If Matt goes halflings, I might go halflings just because to see who is actually the better player.
Are we gonna have an all halfling league? Is that the?
Well, I was thinking. I mean, we could do. Maybe this is outside the scope of this, but we could do a kind of what you were saying about there being 3 tiers of team. We all stick to a tier.
Yeah.
I think it's half the fun though, isn't it? Like having, the difference in
certainly makes it interesting when you get to go up against a team like goblins, and you're like, "What the heck is this? What's happening? Oh, they're just here to kill me."
Well, maybe like you could divide the league into 3, and then if you're in the top of the league, you have to have a lower. Anyway, this is a different conversation. We'll probably need another 2 hours.
I think we had there'd provisionally been a gimmick for next season where we're going to have double XP. So I think maybe in season 5 we'll might be worth, unless everyone decides they'd rather do that next season. But
I have one question for Tom quickly. Which team do you think you might go to after this?
I had this conversation with Euan. So either I've got some unfinished business with orcs.
Yeah.
Because I know how to play them. They're my favorite. In the Warhammer universe, they're my favorite team ever. So I might be doing them, but I also might be doing the same as, just to carry on the joke, the same as Thomas, and because we were speaking about it during our game, and we both were thinking about being I want to say Dark Eldar. What are they called?
Dark Elves.
Dark Elves, yeah, obviously, yeah. But we were both thinking about being Dark Elves, so it might end up like that.
That would be quite funny.
But the I don't know, the greenskins. Yeah, I might be green again.
I think I don't mind it when I don't mind the fact that you have the same team, but it's nice to see a kind of plethora of teams.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping 2 people being the same team, but I agree. It's nice to see a diversity, but thankfully we've got a pretty diverse league in terms of styles this season, so having 2 Lizardmen doesn't unduly change it. And we had Chaos and Nurgle in season 1, which are very similar playstyle, so it's not like we've had always had very different teams. First season was basically all bash. It was very, but a small sample size then.
It was I think it was the wrong time for me to come in as Skaven.
Yeah, everyone outpunched you, and a lot of the teams outpunched you by a lot as well. But hey, you started your tradition of scoring lots of tries and getting injuries, so
Yeah, I did.
it's very much a trendsetter. But yeah,
Trend that no one wants.
yeah,
Cool.
I think we'll wrap it up there for the evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Tom,
So-
you're going down. Euan, why do you always keep winning? And I don't know.
I mean, I don't need to go down to Matt's level and say that he's gonna lose.
That's brilliant.
I mean, genuinely though, to everybody, well played so far. Because I don't, like you were saying earlier, Euan, I don't think there have been any kind of weak players. I think everybody's very strong, and especially obviously people that have come in later and seem to have picked it up much quicker. I feel like much quicker than I did anyway. But
Well, yeah, I think perhaps we'll do this next episode. We'll have a special like awards thing where we theoretically give out awards and we can come up with some ridiculous categories. But
Yeah.
the person I've been most impressed with was Thomas, who's come in from the cold and is going to end up in a playoff position with a very real chance of winning it as well and going through to semi-final and possibly final. So
he's very
Yeah.
obviously got the knowledge of the game behind him as well. He knows the stuff about it. I don't know if he's sort of knows it from before or if he's read about it, but
I'm not sure. We'll see you
in
next
fact,
time.
I think, yeah, well, maybe I think he's played Warhammer basically.
But yeah, thanks for listening,
Cool.
everyone. Thanks for being here, and we'll see/speak to you next time.
Blood
Goodbye.
Bowl.
Boom.